Hello, everyone, and welcome in to yet another episode of the RTI Recruiting Podcast. I am Nathaniel Rutherford, the managing editor of RockyTopInsider.com, joined by both Matt Ray and Brandon Martin of VR2, which is part of the Sports Illustrated family. Thank you guys for coming on as guests for, this is what our fourth or fifth recruiting podcast, it feels like, in the last little over a week now. Since we last spoke, Tennessee has picked up three more commits. We're coming off hot the news of Tennessee getting four-star offensive tackle Colby Smith on Monday, but on Sunday, Tennessee also picked up commitments from four-star running back Cody Brown and probably soon to be four-star, but currently a three-star by most services, defensive back Deshaun Rucker out of Florida, who is an elite track athlete, has offers from Clemson, Alabama, LSU, so he's going to soar up recruiting rankings, I believe. But guys, again, more good news for Tennessee, and again, we're not done yet. We know of a couple of guys who are announcing their commitments on May 10th on Mother's Day. Who knows? There could be even more guys announcing later on this week for Tennessee. But I'm going to go and throw this over to Matt first. Matt, what do you make of this? I mean, this has been, Brandon and I have talked about it before. I don't think that we've ever seen any sort of run on recruiting like this with Tennessee ever, period.
No, I mean, it's been an absolutely insane run. I mean, obviously Kamar Wilcoxon, Julian Nixon, Dylan Brooks, those guys had that part of their run planned. But right now it just feels like Jeremy Pruitt's playing chess instead of checkers. I mean, every piece is just top targets at their position, guys that Tennessee has honed in on. And, everything's on an even playing field right now. And I can't stress that enough. The COVID-19 shutdown, it seemed like the first month it was really hurting the Vols. But no, some guys still stuck to that. We want to get a decision in before the summer, and it has tremendously helped Tennessee. They have evened things out. And if they win some games this fall, it could be crazy what they do with this 2021 class.
Yeah, I think Brandon and I have said that too. Watch out if Tennessee goes and gets a couple upsets this season. I mean, 2021 and then 2022, that's so you're going to see some shockwaves in both classes for Tennessee, probably, in 23 moving forward too, but definitely in these most two, I guess, current recent classes. Brandon, I'm going to throw this over to you because you know both the kind of the film analysis, and obviously, Matt, you can chime in as well because I know you watch film and talk to all these kids as well. But of these three commits Tennessee just got, in your opinion, Brandon, which one is the most impressive? Because I have a hard time picking between the two that Tennessee got on Sunday. Not to bash Colby Smith. I just think of the three kids that Tennessee has gotten commits from in the last 24 plus hours, Cody Brown and Deshaun Rucker both have really impressive film. Brown reminds me a little bit of a smaller, height-wise, and maybe not quite as explosive version of Jalen Hurd coming out of high school. He just runs so powerful downhill, very aggressive, very hard to tackle. Has an elite stiff arm. You can tell that he is a discus thrower and shot putter in high school as well. He just looks like he's already built for the SEC. Same time, though, Deshaun Rucker runs a 10.76 100 meter, which is incredibly fast. He looks very natural on the field. He has good hips. He's very versatile. He's another guy that, I've talked about this multiple times, that looks like he can play multiple positions in that secondary. And Colby Smith, I think, has a lot of upside. I think he's a little more raw than these other two, but I think he does have upside, and he obviously has an elite frame at 6'7", just under 300 pounds. He has the measurables that coaches crave for offensive tackles. In your opinion, Brandon, which of these three commits has the most impressive film, and which one are you most excited about?
All three of these guys are good. I do think Smith is more raw and is being recruited more on his potential right now than what he has done on the field to this point. Rucker and Brown are both guys that could come in and make an early impact at Tennessee. Both have really good film. I like both of them a lot. Rucker is soaring up boards, but for me, it's Cody Brown. I agree with you. I see some Jalen Hurd in him. Not as tall as Hurd was, but that's kind of straight up running style, that long stride. When you watch Cody Brown, he's very mindful of his feet. It seems like his feet are always placed in exactly the right position. He doesn't get tripped up very often. Seems like he always manages to be in a place to make a sudden change of direction or to square up and drop his shoulder on somebody. For a guy his size, he has good speed for a guy at that size and weight. But he's just an old school hammer. I mean, he is just an old school. I'm going to hit you until you get tired of getting hit, and I'm going to make you quit. And then I'm going to keep coming. He is that quintessential get to the fourth quarter, it's carry number 21 or 22, and all of a sudden those 5 and 6 yard gains start turning into 20 and 30 yard gains, and you end the game and score to put a team away. He is that back. And I think Jeremy Pruitt has wanted that guy. We saw him this past season against Mississippi State. After Brian Maurer got hurt, Jarrett Garantano had been struggling in that game. Ultimately, Tennessee wins that game, puts that game away, rather, with the touchdown from Garantano to Byrd. But people forget they were backed up inside their own 10-yard line to start that drive, and Tennessee ran the ball all the way out of their end zone to the point that they were able to make that pass from Garantano to Byrd. Tennessee really ran off a lot of clock late in that Mississippi State game. They leaned on their running game heavily. They did it again against Kentucky. They did it again against Vanderbilt. Jeremy Pruitt has shown that he wants that back to ice a game away, and I think that's what Cody Brown is.
Yeah, I think you have a great 1-2 punch with Brown and Tylan Evans in this class. We talked about Evans, I guess, a week ago. I don't even remember. I think he committed on Wednesday along with Terrell Lewis. So earlier last week, excuse me.
Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. Evans is he's a surprising power back. We talked about before. He's gonna blow the shoulder and go through you if he has to, but he's also shifty, and I think he's a pretty complete package. And I think Brown, we could see potentially what the Hurd Kamara combo could have looked like under better coaching staff. I'm obviously not saying they're both going to be Kamara and Hurd. That's pretty lofty expectations to put on those kids, but I do like the upside, the potential that both Evans and Brown bring to Tennessee's running back room, and I'll be very interested, as we said last time, to see what happens with Tennessee's running back room with all these guys in there, who moves to defense, who moves to maybe a wide receiver or something else, and kind of how that all plays out. Matt, let me ask you about Colby Smith, because I know actually you and Brandon and I have all kind of talked about Colby Smith and had, I'd say, difference of opinions on him a little bit. I think you were probably not that all of us are, not that any of us are down on the kid, but I think you, Matt, might be the one that's kind of the highest on Colby Smith. What do you see in him when you look at his game and stuff? Because I see a guy that has, like I said, the elite size and a lot of potential, but I also see that, he's got a lot of work to go, but I do acknowledge that there is plenty of upside there with him. So I'm curious what you see when you see his film.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of upside there with him. And, I mean, when you look at it, there's a lot of raw athleticism. Can't teach size. And I know when you talk to people about this, you say, well, there's plenty of other 6'7", 300-pound offensive tackles in this class. Yeah, I mean, there are. But I think for me, probably the biggest thing for Smith is just the versatility. He could flip over and play defense if he needed to. He could be that Jeremy Pruitt defensive end that disrupts passing lanes and gives opposing offensive tackles and guards a fit. So for me, I think when you're Tennessee right now, defensive line is such a position of need in this class. I think when you look at Smith and several of the other guys that they're targeting, not to say that any one of those particular guys are going to end up on the DL, but I think from a versatility standpoint, he is a guy that they want to bring in this class and a guy that they think that they could use on either side of the ball. That's where I'm more high on Smith. I think he is raw. I think he's a little bit of a project, but he's a guy that could play himself into some serious time, but he needs to be willing to hit the weight room and work. And, he's got, maybe now, we've talked about this before, maybe the best offensive line coach in the country coaching him in Will Friend. I think at the end of the day, he could really develop into something with that size and, athleticism, but we'll see. he definitely has the work ethic. He definitely is excited about this. You know, talked to him last night ahead of his announcement, kind of broke things down, and he thinks that he has the tools to succeed, and he knows that there's work to be done. He knows that he doesn't play, elite competition night in and night out, and I think it's something that he's up to the challenge for. So we'll see, but I think for me, it's just the versatility standpoint of things.
That was actually going to be my next question too, and Brandon, I'm curious in your thoughts on this too. I almost wonder if he does end up moving to defensive line, because I look at who Tennessee's targeting on the defensive line in this class, and they've got some guys. Obviously, you have Isaac Washington committed. Tennessee's targeting a few other defensive tackles and strong side defensive ends who in Tennessee's defense could move to D tackle if you put enough weight on them and stuff. But I almost wonder, with the fact that Tennessee, it doesn't seem like they are in on as many defensive linemen as they were in the 2020 class. I mean, you look at Jawari Ritzie, you look at Peyton Page, and those are kind of the two obvious ones. I mean, obviously you already have Dylan Brooks committed, and Darrell Jackson, I think, can play on the D-line as well. But I almost wonder if this isn't a guy who you get him on campus and you just kind of see where he fits. And I kind of think, watching his film, he plays pretty well as a defensive lineman too. I think he has a lot of potential on both sides of the ball. I almost wonder if he ends up playing on the D-line for Tennessee. I'm curious if you think the same thing, Brandon.
I can definitely see him playing on the defensive line. I think Smith is a kid that, and we've all talked about this, I think it's probably 2 years till you realize what you've got with Smith. He's very raw. He is going to be a bit of a project, but Tennessee is rolling the dice on this kid, going, okay, we're not sure if he's a tackle or a defensive end, but we have confidence that if he's a tackle, we feel like we have one of the best developers and best offensive line coaches in the country, and Will Friend. If he is on the defensive line, Jimmy Brumbaugh has put a lot of guys in the NFL. He's developed a lot of talent throughout his career. We feel good about putting him over there and letting Brumbaugh work with him. Smith is a kid that has a good work ethic. He wants to be coached. He understands he's got work to do. I mean, just to be frank, he's not playing great competition, and his team is not good. They were really not good last year. And I think that he realizes it's going to be a big step up. I think it's going to be a year or two before you realize what you have in him. But this is Tennessee going, if we can get him good coaching, he can develop into something potentially special with these measurables and this raw athletic talent. And he's a hardworking kid who wants to coach and wants to get better. So if I have a good coach and I have raw talent and I have the attitude that you want to get in the weight room and listen to the coach and get better, you've kind of stacked. It's a gamble, but you've stacked the odds in your favor, and you've got a really high ceiling kid if you hit on him. And so I do see that. I can see him playing in. He's quicker than he is fast, but the thing with Smith is I don't think he comes out of his stance well. I think that's one of the first things that whoever they put him with, offense or defense, one of the first things they're going to do, I think, is tear down and completely rebuild his three-point stance. He doesn't look comfortable in it on film. He doesn't come out of it well. I think they're probably going to tear that down and start completely over there. But once he gets going, he's pretty quick for a 300-pounder. He's got better straight line speed than you would expect. He's got the long arms to give offensive linemen a fit. He's got the long arms to get up and knock passes down. And I could see him going either way. I think William Griffin is in the same boat with Tennessee. I think he's a guy they're looking at that could be anywhere on the defensive line or a right tackle. I think Dietrich Pennington that Tennessee is targeting out of Memphis at Evangelical out there. I think he's in the same boat. He could play anywhere on the defensive line. He could play on the offensive line. So you've got 2 or 3 of these guys Tennessee's looking at that they can put them where they need them, depending on who else they land. I think that's going to be interesting. Smith, to me, is a coin flip. I know they really like him as a potential tackle. They really like him with that tackle frame. But, you know, when he gets in the weight room, he may become that defensive end. I think you're at least 1 year away from really knowing what you have in him. A year in a college and a year in a big-time college strength and conditioning and weight program. I think you're probably 2 years from really seeing him be on the field. But if you hit on him if he puts in the work, if he listens to the coaches, you've got a guy with a really high ceiling here.
I also look at it in the fact that you look at where Tennessee's offensive line room was 2 years ago. When Tennessee got Wanya Morris, when they got Darnell Wright, when they were recruiting, they brought in 4 or 5 offensive linemen in that class, and then you look at last year, they brought in a bunch of guards. I think Tennessee right now, they actually have the luxury of being able to take someone like Colby Smith, who has a lot of upside, may not be the most polished product out there, but they don't need him to come in and contribute as a true freshman. They actually can afford, I think, to actually sit him and redshirt him as a freshman, which is a luxury Tennessee has not had in a while at a lot of positions, but especially on the offensive line. I mean, look at how many true freshmen have had to play for Tennessee on the offensive line since, about 2017? You look at Trey Smith, you look at obviously last year with Wanya and Darnell Wright, you look at a lot of the guys who had to be thrown in as true freshmen due to injury, Marcus Tatum and guys like that who could have used redshirt years, but obviously Trey Smith was going to play anyway. But you look at Tennessee's recruiting on the offensive line since about the 2017 class, and they've been consistently trying to go after immediate impact guys because they've needed those immediate impact guys. And Tennessee can obviously still get some immediate impact guys. Obviously, they get a guy like Amarius Mims in this class. But I think it's worth noting that Tennessee is at a point where they don't necessarily have to have Colby Smith come in and be, that polished product. I think if this was a 2019 class or maybe even the 2020 class, I don't know that this staff would maybe take Smith at this point. They might want to kind of wait and see what he does in his senior season. But I think they actually have the luxury right now of taking him based on his potential, kind of seeing what he does as a senior, and keep him, probably keep him, I'd say, because I do think they like him quite a bit. But bring him on campus and being able to redshirt him, because you have 2 guys who will be juniors in Wanya and Darnell Wright. You have a couple other guys who can play tackle who are already on campus right now, and you could still obviously land Amarius Mims or some other bigger, kind of more polished offensive tackle in this class as well. I just think it's worth noting that this is a spot we haven't seen Tennessee's offensive line in about 4 or 5 years at this point, I think.
It's been a while since they've had a chance to redshirt guys, and we talked about this. There's a chance Amari Thomas redshirts this year. I mean, you're talking about Tennessee having landed some 4-star, high 4-star, really elite athlete prospects, and you have the option, the opportunity to redshirt them. That's something that's not happened in a long time.
No, it hasn't. I think we talked about that before at other positions and stuff too. But Matt, I'm going to turn this over to you for a second for a question here, because I'm genuinely curious. We know for a fact that Tennessee has a couple of targets announcing on Sunday on Mother's Day, May 10th. You have Caden Salter and Aaron Willis, and it seems like all indications are pointing to Tennessee for both those kids. You look at the crystal ball predictions on 247 Sports, and all of them are flooding in for Tennessee for both those guys. I think Tennessee has all 12 of the predictions for Salter, 7 of the 8 predictions for Willis, and the only one they don't have is a guy who put in an undecided or cloudy or whatever, which I don't understand why you put that in. But anyway, they're trending very strong for those guys. I see now also where Tennessee is trending for Ketron Evans as well, a 4-star defensive tackle. Speaking of defensive tackles that Tennessee is targeting in this class. Matt, do you see any way where Tennessee has maybe a surprise or anything? Is there any names or anything like that you think Vol fans should be looking out for between now and Sunday, or are we finally going to have kind of a cooling down period and Tennessee won't get another commit until potentially Sunday, May 10th?
Oh, well, for me, I mean, we answer these questions kind of in our weekly recruiting chat, and it was an absurd number, and the over was set at 5.5. Would you take the over at 5.5 or the under? And for me, I said the under. And Smith was one of the surprises that kind of got me. So I'm not ruling anything out at this point. I didn't think that Smith was this close to making a decision, but I would say right now I wouldn't expect anything until Sunday as far as announcements go.
That's probably what I was thinking too, unless, and this is based on one conversation I've had with another recruit somewhere, unless it's a 2022 kid, but I don't know that we'll see Tennessee get any more 21 prospects between now and Sunday. But hey, I mean, who knows? We kind of thought that before. Tylen Evans, when he committed, it was a surprise. He ended up committing the same day that Terrence Lewis did, excuse me, and people weren't expecting him to announce. He just kind of did it. So, I mean, who knows? We'll see kind of what happens here. But to kind of close out this podcast, it's going to be, I guess, a little bit shorter. But, I mean, there's just a ton we could talk about. Tennessee's, again, on a hot streak. And I think actually Matt had to drop out for a second. So, Brandon, it is just for you and me to kind of finish out this podcast here. I'm going to ask you this. Of the guys Tennessee has added over the last, I guess, 9 days or so, dating back to when Dylan Brooks committed on that Sunday, April 26th. Of all the guys Tennessee's added into their 2021 class since then, which one of them is your favorite? Because
Dylan Brooks.
Is it Dylan Brooks? Why is it Dylan Brooks?
Watch his film and tell me how you block him. He is an absolutely complete pass rusher. He is a holy terror coming off the edge. As far as putting him on film, I look at Dylan Brooks and go, I don't know what you do with him. You have to double him. You have got to give whoever, I don't care how good your tackle is, they need help. You've got to give your tackle a tight end or a running back or a guard or something, because if you leave him one-on-one with a tackle, even in the SEC, his first step is unreal. When he comes out of his stance, he is even with the offensive tackle half the time. The acceleration at that size is unbelievable. He has every kind of pass rush move you can want. He can go inside, outside, bull rush, swim, spin, rip, the works, and then when he gets by you, he closes to the ball carrier and finishes the play. I don't know what you do with him. And then I'll go back and I talked about this in my analysis piece with him. You could potentially in 2021 have Tennessee starting defense have Amari Thomas and Dylan Brooks on the same side of the defense.
Oh boy.
What do you do if you are an offensive coordinator? How do you deal with that? You can't. These are two guys you absolutely cannot block one-on-one. You can't do it. If you do, someone's going to perish. You can't single block either of them. Then on the other side, you're probably going to have Dominic Bailey. Greg Emerson's still going to be on the team at that point. You know, who's your other outside linebacker? It sure looks like Norvin Joseph is going to be a nightmare to have to deal with. Roman Harrison is still around. When I start looking at this front seven, and I realize that Brooks is going to get some one-on-one blocks, just the amount of talent that Tennessee has in that front seven, he's going to get one-on-one. Oh, that's going to be fun to watch.
I might agree with you on Brooks because, I mean, when we talked about when he committed to Tennessee and when I got to talk to his high school coach, I mean, that first step is just deadly. And that's what his coach said. He said that's kind of where it starts. It's where it kind of sets the bar for him is that first step that he has. If it's not Dylan Brooks, for me, it's either, and I feel like I'm cheating because I'm both the 5 stars here, but it might be Terrence Lewis. But if I can't choose a 5-star, I might go with Kamar Wilcoxon. And it's not just because of who he is as a player. I look at his film, and I think he's an exceptional athlete and a really good defensive back. But, man, this kid, as a peer recruiter, is absolutely killing it right out of Tennessee. He has spearheaded Tennessee's recruiting efforts from outside the coaches, but as a player. I mean, this guy has so much swagger, so much confidence in himself, so much confidence in what Tennessee's doing that, I mean, he's taken it personally when some of these schools like Georgia and Oklahoma have taken shots at Tennessee on Twitter. I mean, this guy, he has a chip on his shoulder, and I don't know why because he's an extremely good athlete. But, man, this guy, not only is Wilcoxon a really good player, I think what he's doing for this class from a confidence standpoint, from a swagger standpoint, from getting everybody kind of collected together and coming together in this class, I think Wilcoxon's the guy that you're going to look to in this class as easily the best peer recruiter in the 2021 cycle for Tennessee.
Kamar Wilcoxon needs to be in consider. You have all these coaches in the recruiting rankings. Kamar Wilcoxon needs to be in there. He's earned that. A case could be made for Harrison Bailey to be in that list as well. But Kamar Wilcoxon deserves to be in this Recruiter of the Year talk because it is unreal. Tennessee lands this kid They've been involved with him for a long time. Obviously, there's some bad blood, sour grapes, whatever you want to call it, in him leaving Florida. And I think that just motivated him even more. But he and Brooks were close. He and Cody Brown are close. And immediately after he committed, he started on all these other guys. Yeah, some of them are guys that Tennessee has been involved with for a long time, but it seems like Wilcoxon has just been relentless in trying to build this class. And I do not think that Tennessee is where they're at now without Wilcoxon. I think he is a huge part of them going on this unbelievable tear and putting together. If Tennessee holds on to all these guys and they keep recruiting the way they're not going to keep doing what they've been doing. The last 10 days that they can't keep doing that.
Right.
They don't have enough spots. But if they keep recruiting at this kind of level as far as the talent they're pulling in and landing, and they hold on to these guys, they'll wind up parting ways with a few guys that are in the class now. But this is a team that's going to be in the discussion for the top 2, top 3 classes in the nation right now.
Yeah, I mean, currently they are a consensus. Well, I say consensus. I don't know what ESPN has them because I don't really look at ESPN's recruiting rankings a whole lot. But on Rivals and 247, they are the number 2 class in the country. The only one that's ranked higher than them is Ohio State, and we know how good Ohio State's recruited. I was looking at their recruiting class this morning, and I was like, man, I knew it was good, but it's just like they have it feels like half the top 100 players in the country are committed to them at this point. So Tennessee's class is really, really good. Ohio State's is like a Clemson, Georgia, Alabama level right now. Yeah, they are killing it right now. And Tennessee's the only team that's ahead of them or the teams ahead of Tennessee is Ohio State. So that should kind of tell you. Obviously, Tennessee also has the advantage of having like 18 commits now, but some of these guys are going to move up. Like we said, we think Rucker is going to get a 4-star. I mean, I think Walker Merrill will be a 4-star. I think a couple of guys who are other than them that are 3-stars will end up being 4-stars in Tennessee's class, and a couple of the 4-stars I think could move up even more. I don't know that we'll have any of the guys bump up to 5-stars, but I do think you could see a couple of Tennessee's 4-stars move up a couple of spots here and there. Brandon, the last thing I want to do before we end the podcast here, the 2 guys we know who are announcing on Sunday, Aaron Willis and Caden Salter. Like I said, Tennessee's got all the crystal ball predictions for both those guys. Do you think Tennessee gets both of them? Because at this point, I think it would be a pretty big upset if Tennessee doesn't. Because I look at Salter and his finalists are Tennessee, Auburn, and Baylor. Baylor just took a commitment from a quarterback. If I'm a quarterback, I don't know that Auburn looks super appealing. Although, I mean, to be fair, Tennessee, I guess, doesn't look super appealing based on their past few years of a quarterback play. But they do have Jim Chaney, who is a really good, does a really good job with quarterbacks. I think, to me, that one gives me the most pause because Auburn's always, I always hesitate when Tennessee's going head-to-head with Auburn with any kid. But I do think Caden Salter is kind of torn a little bit between both those schools. But if I had to choose right now, a gun to my head, I think Tennessee gets both Aaron Willis and Caden Salter. I don't know if we'll do a podcast between now and then, so I wanted to do this now. I do think in about 6 days when those 2 guys announce, I think Tennessee ends up with, again, 2 commits in the same day for the 2021 class.
Yeah, I think they're going to get – I feel really good about them landing Willis, which – good gracious, what a linebacker class.
Yeah, he is an exceptionally good linebacker. Him and Lewis or Terrence Lewis are just phenomenal players.
As good as Tennessee's linebacker class was last year, and it was really good. My goodness, I mean, if you land Willis and have Terrence Lewis and Dylan Brooks playing outside linebacker, and then maybe at the end of the month go get a Junior Colson or land a Jeremiah Williams, who they're heavily involved in, who would be an outside linebacker for Tennessee. Good gracious, what a linebacker class. I'm like you, I feel good about Willis. Salter gives me a little pause, but I do think Salter is a pretty heavy Tennessee lean. I think his skill set probably fits better with what Tennessee wants to do than what Auburn wants to do. Salter is a good runner. He's a good athlete. but he's going to make his money with his arm. I would say, to give people a comparison to players that I don't necessarily like comparing guys, the guys in the NFL, but I think Salter is more a Russell Wilson type. He can run. He absolutely has that athletic ability, but he's going to look to and have more success beating you with his arm. Mm-hmm. And I think that fits more with what Tennessee is wanting to do and with what Tennessee has built their offense to do than what Auburn does, which is your legs come first with Gus Malzahn. So I think that's going to probably be the ultimate thing that pushes Salter a little further forward. And depending on how the transfer market goes, depending on when teams get to go back, I've said several times I expect Harrison Bailey to be the starter for Tennessee on opening day, but that was when I thought he was going to get a full spring and summer.
Right.
You've got JT, name just left me.
JT Daniels.
JT Daniels, who has been rumors swirling about, could he come to Tennessee as a grad transfer? Would he start? What does that mean for Jarrett Garantano? If I'm Caden Salter, and if a JT Daniels were to come because the spring and summer were cut short, and you didn't want to go with the true freshman on short notice, then if I'm Salter, I'm looking at my freshman year. When I get to campus, I'm going to go head to head with Bailey. Neither one of us will have a leg up as a starter. We'll slug this out and see who wins the job. That may be an appealing option to him.
Yeah, that's a good point that I hadn't really considered about JT Daniels, and that's going to be interesting to see because the NCAA kind of has now postponed or they're talking about postponing when they vote on that one-time transfer rule for everybody. So I'll be very interested to see when that happens and how that all plays out. I think, obviously, the thing players should have the ability to have a one-time transfer, and if they do, that obviously helps Tennessee with Cade Mays, and also wherever Daniels does go, he'll be able to play immediately without having to petition. But yeah, that's a very good point. I think next time we talk, hopefully we'll be talking about both Willis and Salter committing to Tennessee. So hopefully that'll be on the next RTI recruiting podcast with both Matt Ray and Brandon Martin of VR2 as our special guests. But Brandon, let's go ahead and close out the podcast here. Let everybody know where they can follow VR2, what you guys have coming down the line, and what you guys have on the site currently.
Of course, we just got done breaking all the news with Colby Smith. We have an interview that we have done with him. We have the analysis piece of it. We have our instant reaction videos up. Go over to si.com/college/Tennessee. You'll be able to see all that, see all the content we have for them. You can follow us online. On Twitter, we are at _VR2_. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at VR2. Feel free to give me a follow. I'm on Twitter at Brandon_VR2. As all this recruiting news keeps breaking, we're going to keep giving you everything we can give you just as fast as we can, break down what these recruits bring to the team, what it means for other targets, what it means for other guys Tennessee's looking at. I suspect Matt and I are going to have a video out soon talking about the last 10 days and the impact it has had on the program and what it represents as to where Tennessee is going. And then as we start to get these sports fired back up, we'll be here for football, basketball, and recruiting all around. So check us out at VR2, and we appreciate you.
Yep, they're VR2 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Be sure and follow them there and all those if you haven't already. We're RockyTopInsider.com, and of course Rocky Top Insider on YouTube, which is where a lot of you listen to the podcast. We appreciate that. Also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Go follow us everywhere there as well. Signing off for both Matt Ray and Brandon Martin of VR2, I am Nathaniel Rutherford. Thank you all once again. This has been another episode of the RTI Recruiting Podcast.